When I first got into trading, I thought that I had it all figured out. I'd watched all these videos, studied all these charts, and had all these indicators everywhere. And the truth is, I was all over the place. I'd second guess literally every trade, overanalyze literally everything. And deep down, I guess I just didn't trust myself. When I got stopped out, I'd just panic. And when I had a big win, I'd just panic, right? It was like I wasn't even trading the market anymore. I was just trading my feelings. And I guess that kind of mental chaos, there's really no space for consistency, right? It's just noise. But you know what frustrated me the most? It wasn't really even the losses. It was how I couldn't control my impulsiveness. Like I'd FOMO into setups that just didn't meet any of my criteria. Like I'd recall my rules and I'd be scared to miss the move. And other times I'd just freeze up and watch a perfect setup unfold, literally just hesitate, wait too long, jump in too late, and now my risk to reward is upside down, right? But I still try to force it. I still try to squeeze something out of nothing. And I guess I was just constantly chasing price, constantly overthinking, second guessing, regretting for not entering a move. And then once I entered a move, I would over leverage because I missed the last move. And honestly, it was exhausting. It was mentally draining. But there was this one moment that sort of really just broke me, I guess. I was like right at the verge of quitting after this happened. I'd taken like this huge win, right? Do you know that kind of win that makes you feel you're invincible, right? I thought, that's it. I'm on fire. So, of course, I jumped back into another trade. And thinking I'm going to win because I thought my last trade is going to reflect on my next trade. And of course, that didn't happen. I took a position, lost, then took another position, over leveraged even more this time, and then blew my account. And I remember looking at the screen and I'm sat there thinking like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I'm just not cut out to be a trader. I had to just sit down and think about really just giving up. Looking back, like, what I realized now was the issue is that I just had a very toxic way of thinking. I had this belief in this idea that if I traded more, I was going to make more money. But that really couldn't be further from the truth. It wasn't until I really slowed down and started to focus only on high quality setups that things really began to change. Because I guess trading isn't really about doing more. It's about doing less but with more intention. And that realization didn't really hit me in front of the charts anyway. It happened somewhere unexpected, like halfway up a mountain in Mecca. Now, I'm sat there on this rock, out of breath, I'm frustrated, I'm tired, I'm mentally exhausted. And next to me, I seen this guy who was sat there, and to be fair, he looked just as exhausted as I was. So we started talking, like, just small talk at first, but he just looked quite happy in himself, just smiling about. And I sort of asked him, like, what's brought you here? And what he said kind of stunned me a little bit. He kind of just looked up, smiled, and says, I'm just a traveler here. I'm traversing through the pages of time and space. Earth is my spaceship, and I'm just here as an observer. And it just sort of hit me like, you know what, he's right. Before we ended up parting ways, he handed me this small pocketbook, and I didn't think much of it at the time. Tucked it in my bag, and on the flight back home, I decided I'd give it a read. And the title of this little book was The Conscious Traveler, believe it or not. Anyway, as I read through those pages, I guess something in me started to shift. And it wasn't about trading at all, but it was massively influential in my trading. It was all about presence. It was all about being conscious. It was all about purpose, right? And I guess it came at a moment in my life where I was constantly thinking about, why am I here? What's the reason to all of this? What's my purpose, right? I wasn't searching for a new strategy, I guess. I was just searching for like a center, something to anchor me. Anyway, as I started diving deeper into consciousness, I really began to think about things like time, like how little of it we have. And I realized something profound, and this was the life-changing thing for me, is I realized I was always in a constant state of anxiety. Either anxiety about my future or things that are going to happen, or anxiety about the past where I'm obsessed about trauma. Right? And I kept bringing all of that into my trades because I guess the mind doesn't like to stay present. It stays either in the future or either in the past most of the time, right? So when I sort of switched that mindset and I stopped focusing on the outcomes and only started focusing on my trading, like my executions and what I could do right, like what could I control rather than what I couldn't control. Basically, I told myself, if I follow my rules and I lose, then that's a win. If I break my rules and I win, that's a loss. And that mindset sort of shifted everything because suddenly I was able to just focus on every single trade as a separate moment in time. My last trade suddenly had no bearing on my next trade. And this trade that I was taking was going to have no bearing on the next trade. So suddenly I was able to just sort of break from that sort of constant anxiety of how is this trade going to unfold. Each trade became its own moment. No baggage, no ego, no emotional leftovers, just real clean execution. But that change in mindset didn't even stop at trading. That spilled into everything, like my routine, my health, my relationships. I guess I just started taking care of myself a little bit more and being more appreciative of life. I started to meditate. I prayed more. I became more content. And instead of using trading as an escape from life, I started to enjoy the process and stop putting a time limit on it. I realized that staying present was the most important thing because what I do now will shape my tomorrow. Fast forward many years later now, and God, my life is so different. I live now on my own terms. I've managed to build something meaningful, and I'm able to help thousands and thousands of traders all over the world through my journey. And the messages that I receive on a daily basis, is massively humbling, right? I guess through trading, I've discovered who I finally am. And when you know who you are, you begin to see the version of yourself that you want to become, the version of the trader that you're supposed to become. I guess if I could go back and talk to the old me, I'd say, stop putting so much pressure on yourself, bro. Give yourself some space to grow. You do not need to get rich overnight. Give yourself time to evolve. Don't chase trading as an escape from life. Walk it as a path, as a process on who you're supposed to become. If you stay fixated on the results, you're always going to feel empty. But if you fall in love with the process, everything else follows. And that money, it comes as a byproduct of following that process. If you're watching this right now and you feel stuck and you feel discouraged, or maybe you're even like I was on the verge of giving up, I want you to breathe a second, right? Just take a step back. And the first thing to do is look how far you have come. Remember when you first started to trade, right? You've survived through a lot. You survived through your worst trades. You survived through the setbacks. You survived through the blown accounts. And you're still here listening to me ramble on, right? So you're doing something right. It shows that there's still some fight in you. What's meant for you, it won't miss you. You don't need to force it. You just need to keep showing up. You need to keep that trust and that belief that in time, everything will fall into place. Anyway, if this message resonated with you and you want more information about algorithmic price action, which is now what I trade, and how it's really helped me to build the life that I have today, then click on the link below in the description and download the Market Maker's Secrets. You can download that whenever you're ready. Thank you for being here and keep going.